Rainy night. Sophia had always loved the rain, but tonight it felt different. The downpour was relentless, and the usually comforting sound of rain on the roof now seemed ominous. She was driving home from work, her car's headlights barely piercing the curtain of rain. Her wipers worked furiously, but visibility was still poor. She could feel the tension building in her shoulders. The roads were deserted, and each mile felt longer than the last. Sophia glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was nearing midnight. Sophia's car suddenly sputtered and came to a halt. She tried turning the key in the ignition, but the engine refused to start. Panic began to creep in. She was stranded in the middle of nowhere on a stormy night. She pulled out her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. Sophia looked around, hoping to spot a house or a gas station, but the darkness was impenetrable. She decided to wait in the car, hoping the rain would let up or a passing vehicle would come by. Just as Sophia was about to lose hope, she heard a distant, eerie sound, a train horn. It seemed out of place on this isolated road. The sound grew louder, and soon, she saw the faint glow of a train approaching in the distance. Relief washed over her as she stepped out of the car, waving her arms to get the train driver's attention. The train came to a slow stop, and the driver, a middle-aged man with a weathered face, leaned out of the window. "What are you doing out here?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the rain. "My car broke down. Can you help me?" Sophia replied, her voice trembling. The driver nodded and gestured for her to come closer. "Hop in. I'll take you to the nearest town." Sophia climbed into the train's cab, grateful to be out of the rain. The driver introduced himself as Tom. He had a kind face, but there was something about his eyes that made Sophia uneasy. As they started moving, Sophia noticed that the train was empty. She tried to shake off her discomfort and struck up a conversation. "Do you often pick up stranded drivers?" Tom smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Not often, but I couldn't leave you out there in this storm." As they traveled, Tom began to share strange stories about the area. He spoke of ghost sightings, unexplained disappearances, and other eerie occurrences. Sophia listened, her unease growing with each tale. "Do you believe in ghosts?" Tom asked suddenly, his eyes fixed on the tracks ahead. Sophia hesitated. "I don't know. I've never seen one." Tom chuckled softly. "Sometimes you don't need to see to believe." The train approached an old, rickety bridge. Tom slowed down, his expression serious. "This bridge is said to be haunted," he said. "Years ago, a train derailed here during a storm much like this one. Many lives were lost." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. She looked out the window, trying to see through the rain. For a moment, she thought she saw shadowy figures moving on the bridge, but it could have been her imagination. As they crossed the bridge, Sophia noticed a figure standing by the tracks ahead. It was a man, drenched and shivering. Tom slowed the train and opened the door. "What are you doing out here?" he asked the stranger. The man climbed aboard, his eyes wide with fear. "I need to get away from here," he stammered. "Something is out there." Tom exchanged a glance with Sophia, his expression grim. "What did you see?" The man shook his head. "I don't know, but it's not human." Suddenly, the train shuddered violently. Sophia looked out the window and saw a dark shape moving swiftly alongside the train. It was too fast to be human, and its eyes glowed with an eerie light. "Hold on!" Tom shouted, accelerating the train. The shape kept pace, its movements unnatural and terrifying. Sophia clung to her seat, her heart pounding. The train sped through the night, the dark figure never far behind. Sophia could feel its malevolent presence, and she prayed they would outrun it. After what felt like an eternity, the train finally reached a small, dimly lit station. Tom brought the train to a stop, and the figure vanished into the darkness. The man they had picked up jumped off the train and ran into the station without a word. Tom turned to Sophia. "We're safe here. This station is protected." Sophia didn't understand, but she was too relieved to question it. She followed Tom into the station, grateful to be out of the rain and away from whatever had been chasing them. "Inside the station," Tom explained. "This place is a sanctuary. The spirits can't enter here." Sophia felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, Tom. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." Tom smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "You're safe now. But remember, not everything is as it seems." The storm had passed by morning. The station was quiet, and the air was crisp and fresh. Sophia and Tom stepped outside, the daylight making everything seem less frightening. "Where will you go now?" Tom asked. Sophia looked at the road ahead. "Home, I suppose. Thank you for everything, Tom." He nodded. "Take care, Sophia. And be careful on rainy nights." As Sophia walked away, she turned back to wave goodbye, but Tom and the train had vanished. She stood there, confused and a little frightened. Had it all been a dream? She reached into her pocket and found a small, old-fashioned train ticket. It was dated from the night of the derailment Tom had mentioned. Sophia shivered and held the ticket tightly. She knew she would never forget that rainy night and the mysterious train driver who had saved her.